Karen's HOA, desperate after repeated humiliations, escalated their aggression once more by sending cops to break into my house over a $5 fine. They assumed that a show of authority and intimidation would compel me to comply. What they didn't know was that my son, a Special Forces veteran, was home that evening and prepared for exactly this kind of reckless intrusion. The night began quietly, with shadows stretching across the property. Suddenly, vehicles approached the driveway, lights off but engines running. Karen's so-called enforcers, dressed in faux authority uniforms, stepped out, carrying warrants that were dubious at best, claiming that my failure to pay a trivial $5 fine justified immediate entry. They had assumed I would be absent or intimidated. Inside, my son had been monitoring the property's security systems. He immediately identified the approach of multiple intruders and assessed their numbers, positions, and possible tactics. Calm and calculated, he moved into position, fully aware of the stakes. When the cops attempted to force the door open, they triggered silent alarms I had installed, alerting both me and my tactical team to their exact positions. As they breached the perimeter, my son confronted them at the door. His training allowed him to assess their behavior in an instant, identify the threat levels, and respond with precision. He issued commands, demanded they stop, and positioned himself strategically to control the entryway. The intruders, expecting minimal resistance, were stunned by his presence, discipline, and readiness. Their confidence evaporated immediately. Karen's enforcers attempted verbal intimidation, shouting about authority, fines, and legal consequences, but every word fell flat against a trained operative's calm, precise command. My son efficiently neutralized their attempts to force entry, using defensive techniques to disarm and immobilize them without inflicting injury. Within moments, the intruders were contained, confused, and fully aware that they were outmatched. Meanwhile, I arrived on the scene, surveying the standoff from a secure vantage point. I documented everything: video footage, photographs, and timestamp notes, creating an irrefutable record of the HOA's unlawful behavior. Karen had assumed that a minor fine could justify aggressive intrusion, but her reckless plan had instead created undeniable legal jeopardy for her and the HOA. Once law enforcement arrived, alerted by my call and my documentation, the cops were held accountable for trespass, harassment, and intimidation. Karen, watching from a distance, realized too late that her plan had not only failed but exposed her to potential criminal charges. Her confidence collapsed entirely as the reality of her incompetence sank in. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, witnessed the resolution. Social media and local news outlets amplified the story. HOA tries to break into private home over $5 fine, thwarted by Special Forces veteran. The public humiliation was complete, and Karen's credibility sank further into irrelevance. Her HOA's influence was severely diminished, and her audacity had become a source of ridicule. By evening, the property was secured, the intruders removed, and my son ensured that no further attempts would succeed. Additional security protocols were activated, including reinforced doors, expanded surveillance, and emergency response measures to guarantee that any future attempts at intimidation would be instantly neutralized. The lesson was clear: any attempt to intimidate or coerce without understanding the skill, preparation, and readiness of those you target will result in catastrophic failure and public exposure. Karen had assumed her authority could compel compliance over a trivial $5 fine, only to discover that she had miscalculated entirely. Standing on the porch that night, I reflected on yet another victory. Karen's repeated misjudgments had consistently reinforced my authority, showcased my preparedness, and demonstrated to the community that any aggression against me or my family is futile, dangerous, and humiliating. My property remained secure, my family safe, and Karen's HOA further discredited. A clear message that overreach and arrogance always come with consequences.